Hi, welcome to Watcher DM. I'm Gabriel, and today I am continuing my series of flip through reviews where I will be exploring the Wonderland fantasy role playing setting by Andrew Kolb. The book's construction is pretty glorious. I really enjoyed receiving. I got all three of these books. They are glossy. The pages are glossy. They're intended also for 5e, like 5th edition. And the insert there's like a terrible insert that comes in with it that is a chessboard for mapping or kind of using as like an exploration place. Of course, this is Looking Glass Land and this is Wonderland. So that's how that's supposed to work. It also comes with some pre-generated characters and some handy dandy quick reference sheets. So you get some names of some different characters here. D100 rumors, D100 loot, and then these are the quick reference for the rules. And yeah, pretty straightforward. On the inside, on the end papers here, you've got the quick block reference. So these are the different blocks that are used throughout the dungeon. Wonderland is designed as a dungeon crawl. So the idea is you've got a chessboard and you're going to be placing the pieces of these blocks on that chessboard, and they're by level. So really any single level is going to have all of the blocks from its set on it. But you should really only have like one of any given block of a certain type. So like Domino Domain 1-5 or the Fungal Caves, you really only want one of each of those. But like Hallway, for instance, you could have many of those. So unfortunately, they didn't really express that here. I think it would have been a little convenient, but that's all good. It is a handy reference. So let's get into the book. I have been using this to run a campaign for my mother using Into the Odd as the rule set. So I will have some notes about what that's looking like. It has been a lot of fun, and I like the way that this is designed for quickly kind of getting into a campaign with a few caveats to that. So just go through the book here. It does start with what's going on. So the game boards, these are the different places you can explore that are expressed in this book. The playing pieces, so this talks about some of the main characters and some of the character types you're going to be finding throughout the game. Themes, motifs, and expansion. So, themes, motifs, and expansion. This is just that content and safe play, tone and lethality, how it works. This is where it talks about it being a dungeon crawl. And then it does say the running the game gives you a suggested setup. So this is stuff you will want to do before you start running this game. Mapping Wonderland. So it talks about the different concepts here of how this works. Again, those blocks fit onto a chessboard. Within each block, there is a square. So your PCs can be in a certain square on that chessboard. And then within the block, there's also a series of rooms that will be expressed for the given block. Changes and constants. So this talks about what things might change. It's up to the GM when the layout of Wonderland changes. I'm really glad they said that because basically I don't think I'm going to change my Wonderland until I maybe run with another group. But it does say that the sample layouts keep the following elements consistent, but they aren't required when creating new maps. So you can leave certain things out if you don't want to have them in your map. And then it talks about mapping Looking Glass Land. It's basically flipped left to right. So it's Wonderland, but it's flipped. And then the gameplay cycle it just talks about how to kind of play the game. Goals and experiences, so like how are you progressing as a character? What are you down there for? And then there's 3 different types of crawls in this game, which is the dungeon crawl, the board crawl, and the depth crawl. So the dungeon crawl is obviously the one you're going to be starting with, where you're doing the thing. And then the board crawl is more like you're kind of moving from square to square around the chessboard and kind of exploring that way. And then the depth crawl is for specific parts of the dungeon that go like deeper. And so like the Tulgi Wood and the Hedge Maze, you're going to have some exploring and searching and stuff, and you go deeper, and you'll roll up kind of different random bits in that. Turns, time, and action expresses how all of these things work in terms of tracking turns and movement, which is great. And then it gives a little bit here about encounters, exploring and searching, in again within those different contexts. And then accidents waiting to happen, doors, Almost Alice and the Glass Gorgon. These are characters that you're going to run into throughout the dungeon. In fact, my mom ran into Almost Alice immediately. So keep an eye out for that. That can be very dangerous if it happens very early. And if your players don't know that, running is an option, or that maybe they should run, this might be something you want to talk to them about. Looking Glass, land encounters, and refractions. So this is all, it's just a mechanic around how the Looking Glass works. Sizes growing and shrinking. This is really interesting because it talks about this here, and the support for it in the actual module is a little hit or miss, but I think it's largely worked. It's just a part of the fiction, right? It's part of Wonderland that she changes size fairly regularly. So this section here is about growing and shrinking, which is going to impact play and will happen relatively frequently in this game. Discovering Wonderland, passing of time, wanderers. These are people who come from Wonderland, I think. Being trapped in Wonderland, wordplay. So everything here is kind of wordplay, and everybody likes that except for the queen, or the heart queen, I guess I should say. Rank and rule. At its simplest, there are two classes within Wonderland: the royals and everyone else. There's definitely a hierarchy in the game, and this gives you some guidance on how to articulate that. The sleeping is a kind of character at the least accessible levels of Wonderland. And the sleeping's identity, as well as the story that led to the creation of Wonderland, is up to you, the GM. So I have a story for this that I've come up with for my mom's playthrough. She does not know who this is or what that is. So that's part of the game, is kind of exploring that. There's a quick list here of 6 impossible things. It describes the Alice statues, crimes, taxes, and trials, because of course. Looking Glassland talks about that. Pandemonium is the realm of dreams. I guess I didn't say this up front, but Wonderland is in this supplement considered to be like the demi-plane between the real world and the dream world. And then the world above and Dinah. Got phases of growth, growing too big, advanced rules and mechanics. So these are some advanced rules that you can insert if you want to. And then it talks about vertical map making, size and combat, quickly fleeing Wonderland. So it loads you up with a bunch of rules up front, kind of how to use this, and a bunch of kind of supporting document, chase sequences, stuff like that. And then we get into chapter 2. This is the cast. The art in this is fantastic. The stat blocks are bad. I'm not calling out the author here. I think he did what he could with what he had. They are intended to support 5th edition. They kind of barely do that. They certainly don't support a lot else. And I think they're really big for what they are, which is unfortunate because they probably could have been more effective if they were a little more terse. But they are what they are. And I think they're expressing some super interesting characters, maybe on a much bigger and weirder power scale than the game I'm running probably supports, and that's fine. Like this, again, this is designed for 5th edition. But I think it definitely, like, if you were to take some of these stat blocks as written, you'd end up with some pretty deadly, random, organized stuff in your campaign, which could be cool. Children in Wells is hilarious. So we're gonna dig through this as yeah. So the weird one of the first weird things here is that like the way that the size of monsters is described is bigger, alike, or smaller, and this is in reference to your character's initial state. So how tall you are originally, which can be kind of confusing once you've had some changes, like some form changes. The Dreamins here, there's like Dreamin generators. So major and minor Dreamins are like demons of the dream world. They're like the denizens of the dream world. These are really fun to generate, and it does actually recommend generating a few of these so that you can very quickly get them to the table should they come up on a random encounter, because they kind of express like the interesting juice of what's in the pandemonium. And yeah, you got the hand, you got the Hatter. You got to go see the Tea Party for that. The heart is in there somewhere. It's your Humpty Dumpty. All the art in here was done by Andrew Kolb, which is insane. This is so much work. It's really impressive. It's just such an impressive book. The Jabberwock is here. You got your Jester, your Jub Jub birds, lion and a unicorn, lobsters, lobster people in little lobster suits. So insane. Then you got some looking glass creatures. Lost souls. These are shoes that are kind of lost. Again, a lot of this wordplay stuff, right, comes out throughout this book. So you end up with these very fun, just really fun little moments of punnery that are great. Okay, yeah, so yeah, you've got these great characters here. So it's the Tea Party, talks about the Dormouse, the Hatter, the March Hare. Again, like, you can see what I'm talking about, right? There is a ton of stuff going on here. Um, the idea that you might run these like at the drop, just you're gonna have to flip back to this section. These are complicated enough, and every single character, every single entity in Wonderland is robust. They're pretty full. I think maybe the Weeds might be among the shortest character sheets or kind of stat blocks in the game. And then we get into the land. Now, I'm going to blaze through this pretty fast. This has that same quick reference, the quick block reference from the end paper. These are sample map layouts. I chose from this for my playthrough, because it's my first playthrough. I recommend doing it. I think they're perfectly serviceable. They're very, very good. It also gives you a really nice, handy reference for the 17 different blocks and how to find them. So what pages they are on within this book. And then it starts going through. Now, I'm going to go through this one first and then kind of probably blaze through and kind of highlight some of my favorites. But all of them are structured this way. So the first and most important thing to understand is that you're going to get a description up here. You've got your D20 encounter table. So right out the gate, you can roll a D20 and draw a card. Only some of these will actually require that you use the card. So like if you roll a 20, for instance, it's going to be almost Alice or a Glass Gorgon. If it's a 17, it's a well, mirror, or mouse hole. So like those ones don't require any looking. And then like NPC, you're going to look here. So you can roll a d12 to get this value, or you can just look at the card you've drawn and say, oh, it was a 7 or an 8, whatever. And so these tables exist here to kind of facilitate that. Same thing with doors, block quirks, right? So those are different entries here. And so you're either using the suit or the value to describe these. There's quick tables here for D6 conflict and D6 loot. So this can be a way to kind of generate conflict or loot. You'll roll these encounters every other turn in the adventure, or like the setup for this. That's how it works. It talks briefly about what's different in Looking Glass land. It does have like a description here, and this kind of seems like the most useless to me, honestly. I think all of them are kind of like this, where it's like, oh, movement is free between all these different sections. I didn't really understand. I have not found this useful yet. Maybe that's just me. I haven't found it useful yet. First impressions is your really quick, like this is what they see coming in, and then it does have a section here that talks about the block specific mechanics, and kind of in big like readable text, which I'm stoked that they put this in here. My problem with it is that it is literally in most cases just a copy of what's down here, and this book has a lot of that. There's a lot of places where I found information was kind of copied and kind of reused. And I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Now, the good stuff on here, and there is lots of good stuff, right, is like you've got your what's in the closet. You've got your what's on the walls and shelves. You can roll really quickly to generate answers to the questions your PCs might ask. You pick one of these to be like this expression of this room, but the idea is that this place changes or is different each time that they enter. And yeah, that's kind of it, right? You're going to always have this kind of expression. Now, that's how it works for each page. So the first thing you're going to notice is that for the D20 encounters here, like, that's the same. That's the same. It's the same on every page. There's nothing different, right? Now, the door quirks, the block quirks, some of those are different. Accidents waiting to happen, some of those are different. You're getting different creatures and NPCs, but the way that this is structured, it was designed to be very reusable. Like you want it. Yeah, I get what he was doing, right? This is a very smart way to do it. And actually, this is why this is useful, by the way. The movement on the bridge here might be the one place where, like, oh, it's the bridge is either going east to west or it's going north to south. And that's said using this. It's a very strange way to say that. You can also move down in levels by just kind of being thrown off of things. Like if you can move between levels by falling. And the idea is you don't actually take damage from falling when that happens, which is, I think, is really interesting. Really good, but it's also really interesting. You will find most of the descriptions in here are very terse. They use, bold for like important concepts, but they don't always explain what the impact of those concepts are. And in fact, I'm going to say, like, I wasn't super impressed with actually like how most of this stuff kind of cooks out. Like, I feel like I'm having to do a lot of work to make these things more interesting. But that's just like, I think it's partially a limitation of the format because the expression is so focused on delivering, consistent, your map is here, you've got this much room for your block for your text. These are always going to be here to kind of, and your concepts have to fit within this shape, right? Like, this is the kind of book where the design was chosen and then the information was kind of created to fill the design. And, I think that's a bold move, first of all. And in some ways, it works extremely well. So I don't want to knock this. This is a fantastical, this is an amazing effort. It's really, really compelling to have happened. But I think it's like an interesting case and looking at something and going, oh, wow, yeah, I can see the weaknesses of this. Like, I, as a designer and a DM and somebody who's got to use this thing, I can see the weaknesses. I see the strengths in it. I think it's got some really compelling, very useful ideas about how this is laid out. But the problems that I see with it are down to like, well, how supported am I in a place that is the Asherian stairs, right? Like, that doesn't seem like very much text to describe what might be happening in the Asherian stairs. The fungal caves are kind of wild. A lot of locations, which means any given location is going to have very small amount of supporting text and very little that's happening in there. It's really going to come down to the GM being very engaged in kind of hydrating that with additional stuff if the PCs want to stick around and do something interesting. which, they should. I think it's like, there's plenty here to explore. The hall is interesting. The hallway does the growing and shrinking stuff. You've got King's Row here. The mill, this is like a river and waterfall area. The mustard mine is one of your first depth crawl. Or maybe it's actually just a dungeon crawl. Movement and where the players exit are determined randomly unless a party member is wearing a Tweedle hat. See page. Yes, this is a depth crawl mechanic. That's what I thought. So basically, they just keep moving around between these squares and hitting these different areas as they explore, which is interesting. You've got the observatory, the pool of tears, Tea Party's estate, the wasteland, the White Rabbit's cottage, and then we're into level 2. Now, level 1 is ruled by the Bone King and the Dominoes. Level 2 is, I think, currently ruled by the White King and Queen. And so, yeah, you've got your distant hill, a flower garden, fountains. Feels a lot more kind of palatial, I feel like, on this level. Lighthouse and the beach, looking glass house, pay dirt, pristine grass with repeating plots of freshly turned soil, shovels in the middle of each dig site. Excitement and superstition fill the air. The pay dirt. 9 5-foot square plots of loose soil. Dirt mechanics. Once per day, anyone may dig 3 times to try and win a prize. It's literally like a gambling dig mechanic in the middle of the game. Pretty fun. River of Reeds. I didn't even mention it actually. Back here, one of the places is the mill. There's a riverbank, and the riverbank is a place where you can deposit your coin and get a reed receipt. Like a wood instrument reed. Puns. It's all puns. The whole thing is wordplay. So just keep that in mind as you're playing. There's going to be some groans. Yeah, the River of Reeds here. So gems and coins and stuff. The statue garden. You've got your topiary garden. A lot of gardens on level 2. The tower. I like that they're color-coded. Like the green, actually, I love. I really, really appreciate the green. Got a train here. The Tolji Wood is your second depth crawl. Tweedle's cabin. The vegetable garden. And then you're on to level 3. So again, 17, right? So you did 34 pages of level 2, 34 pages of level 1. So we're at 68 pages. There's going to be another 34 pages of level 3 because it's 17 rooms, right? So again, the benefits of this structure I totally get. This is cool. Like I would totally consider designing a book this way just for that alone. So it's really nice to be able to say, oh yeah, this is exactly what we have to make. This is what we have to write, Very, very clever. The Croquet Court. These places down here, you're getting more into the Red Queen's kind of space, and so you're going to spend time in places like the dungeon or the forge. This is much more like a great castle, I think, is this whole kind of area. You're going to have a lot of all the cards, right, are doing this. This floor is all controlled by cards. The second level of the dungeon is controlled by the chess pieces. And so that's kind of how this whole game is separated out. Is you've got the 3 kind of different royal factions. And then the Dreamans and Lilith will kind of invade and interact with the PCs as kind of outsiders. The playroom, you've got the stairs, the study, the theater. This is a weird one where you've kind of got like a pass-through from one block to another. The vault, which I will need to remember to keep that in there. And then, yeah, the sleeping quarters. So this is the sleeping's quarters. And this is where the PCs might interact with the sleeping, which is that character that they don't know about from the beginning. Chapter 4 talks about pandemonium, and so this is all about the denizens, so their behavior, death, reading books and magic, names, the four courts, which are, of course, from the tarot. So it's the coins, cups, swords, and wands courts. So your dreamins are all going to be of coins or of swords. That's how they're designed, which is great. Like, honestly, this part of the book is deserving of its own book. It's pretty interesting. It talks about contacting dreamins and summoning them, which is great. Summoning and banishing. And then you've got the plane of dreams, how you can enter and leave, travel around it, running pandemonium, how to prepare, and the 9 circles of dream, which, yeah, like, that's a page. That's it. The circle is an endless void. Loss, none. Yeah, crazy. Chapter 5, you begin into resources. Now, this is where something interesting happens. There are places in this book where you're going to interact with something like the dirt worm. Or you're going to say you might found a mouse hole. And you're going to be like, well, what do I do for that? The oracle interior, right? The wells, where there's children in the wells. It talks about that. So when you roll up a well, now you've got a place to go to look, to find the well, and what's happening. Now, if you go back here and you look at one of these tables, you're going to see it says 17, well or mirror. There's kind of nowhere on this page that tells you, oh, look here for wells, 193, right? That would have been useful. That's, I think, maybe the one thing I was like, man, if they had a page number for the wells and like for these specific things somewhere, that'd be really useful. So note for keep in mind for next time I design something, really think about like where I'm putting things and how I can reference them from other places. You've got your accidents, so different accidents that can happen on different surfaces. Adventures, general, adventure specific, little couplets generator, so you can generate some poems. They're random poems, which works, I think, well for the context of Wonderland. You've got crimes, silly crimes. Dreamin' names. This whole section on Dreamins, I think I've already talked about how great the Dreamins are. Generating names and epitaphs, or epithets, and having, like, yeah, just different Dreamin' stuff is really, really great. You've got your encounters here for the different levels. Evidence that could be brought up by the queen during court, which is really interesting. Because, like, yeah, you remember the scene, I'm sure, where she's like, that's very interesting evidence. Like, exits and entrances. So these are different ways to get in and out of Wonderland. You are fleeing Wonderland. This is probably the weakest table in the whole bit. It is what it is, but like, I don't really need that. Imperfections. This is like weirdnesses about different denizens. Got some ingredients, jester's fees, so things he wants. Keep the door shut, so like things they say when they shut the door. Locations on level 1, level 2, and level 3. So this allows you to kind of randomly roll up a specific location if you're trying to generate, like, oh, it's in this place. Which place? You can randomly generate that, which is interesting. I also figured a way to do that where you just use a D8, like 2D8 basically, D88, because you get a chess, set. So if you do that and a D3, you can get a level and a specific square on your chessboard. Looking glass refractions, major and minor. Then you've got your loot table. You've got your odds and ends, patterns, plot hooks, the rumors table, which is also on that other supplementary page. You've got taxes. What is it worth in GP? So you can roll up what something is worth in the real world. And then a year of the table. And some external complementary resources, just a discussion of some different things you can go look at to get inspired to run this, about the author, thanks to you, and then we get the sketchbook section, where Andrew Kolb has graced us with some of his sketches and some of the thinking and process development for how he structured this and came up with this incredible work. So the treatment for the cover, the original kind of sketches for how that was done. These are my missing pages, obviously. And then our legal text at the back for the Open Gaming License, the OGL. And this is your sample layouts that you find in the middle of the book. So you can do your sample layouts and your blocks on the bookends, the end papers. Holy smokes, we did it. We made it. Thank you for hanging out on my exploration of Wonderland, a fantasy role-playing setting by Andrew Kolb, 5e compatible. I hope you enjoyed this. If you like these types of videos, I hope you'll hit the like button. Hit subscribe if you would like to see more of them. Hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when they come out. These get released every Tuesday, I believe, at about 10 a.m. Pacific. And if you want to get early access to videos like these, you can go over to patreon.com/watcherdm. You sign up for any paid tier. You'll get a bunch of other kind of exclusive Patreon bits and bobs that I make, although I'm a full-time working nerd who does this as a hobby. So, it's as slow as I am, and I'm not particularly talented. I'm just a guy who likes making this stuff. So, but any little bit of money that comes in that way, I do use to help fund my friends' dreams of doing this for a living. So I try and pay that money forward and make sure that they've got a lot of support in their abilities to do good work. So yeah, I hope you will take me up on some of that. Otherwise, I hope you'll get Wonderland. It's worth it. It's really, really fun. Even if you don't play 5e. You should get this book just for what it is. I think it's available on Amazon. I think, actually, Ben Milton shouted out, he was like, yeah, this thing's on sale on Amazon. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to spend all that money now. So I went and picked all 3 of them up. You should expect to see more videos like this. They're getting a little long. Thanks for playing. Thanks for hanging out. And I will see you in the next one.